Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to cook, and we're going to cook a big bucket of soup, and we're going to do it in the portion way. I'll show you something really easy to make that it'll take less than an hour for me to cook it. I'll do this kind of time lapse, and what it'll do is it'll save you probably 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 hours of cooking through the week. The real take-home point here is that we're doing all of our prep work and our cooking work at one time, and it saves time into the future. So let's get on with it here. Just a little description. I got looking at these containers, and almost all your meal plans, believe it or not, these containers are different sizes just so that they're kind of a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, right? And I'm really focusing on the vegetables, the protein, and the carbs on what we'll be doing today. So if you were to kind of match these up, you got vegetables. This would be carrots, right? Celery, green beans. This will be the chicken. So I've got some chicken here, and actually it's better off if you thaw it out to begin with, but what I'm going to do is just boil this up in the background while we're all doing the rest of our cooking, and we'll come back around to that at the end. And then the carbohydrate side, you might have a potato or two, and then I think I'm going to make some noodles too, so that will mix in with the carbohydrates. So, oh, and one other thing too, what's going to be your background on it? Use something like this. This is a specific organic vegetable broth or chicken broth. The question is, how are you going to count it, right? And for me, I'd say that this really rides out into the decimal point of what we're up to here. If you look at this entire thing has 60 calories in it, right? This entire thing has 40 calories in it. So it's really not that big of a contribution to what's going on. It's one last thing on the broth that's already made up. Read the ingredients, and you might want to stay away from something that has MSG in it. I'm going to start chopping up, and I'll tune back in with you in a couple of minutes here. We're about 15 minutes into this, and what I've done is I've chopped up all my vegetables, put them in this one colander, and I've chopped up all my, she considers a potato yellow, so I've always considered it a vegetable, but I'll stick with her plan. I put those separately on out, otherwise I combine them all. So now what you're gonna do is you're just gonna take your bucket, and I've done this already so I know how many are in here, but I'm gonna count these out: 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are all going in here. Oh, by the way, you've washed all this stuff too. And then I'm gonna go over here and I'll count these things out, which I already have. But you're gonna do this on your own, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So what I have here is 10 of these things so far and 6 of these things so far. And what I'm going to be left with here is kind of what am I going to do about the remainder, because I need 4 more of these, right? And I need 10 of these. Now remember, my chicken's back here on the stove. It's boiling up. I'll get to it at the end after I chop it up, but I'm going to put 10 of these things in, or close to of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some noodles here, right, with the rest of the other 4 of these that I've got remaining. I just thought I'd come on back and finish that thought before I moved on. Save you guys a little bit of time. Of those green things with 10 buckets of those, or cups, that's about 6 or 7 carrots. It's a whole deal of celery like you would buy out of the store. It's 2 or 3 handfuls of green beans, right? And it's 3 of these potatoes, about that big, that goes in those 6 cups. This just kind of so you don't have to experiment around. That's probably a good starting point for this. And also, since I can, I'm going to go ahead and add in my broth, these are really just making up your soup, is you gauge how much of this stuff you want to put in here. I've made this about 100 million times, and I always think I'm going to just put 2 of these in, and I end up putting 3 in. So I'll start out with 2. And one thing too, as a general rule, once you put it in, you can't take it back out. So put 2 in. If you think you're going to use 3, put the 3rd one in later on, right? I'm going to get this on the stove, and I'll be right back, and we'll start those noodles. Alrighty, I'm back now for the noodles. And what I always like, you can use pretty much any kind of flour you want, but I like this semolina flour. Turns out I don't have enough of it, so I'm going to have a mix of, if you will, just stone ground whole wheat flour here and this semolina. See how much we have. So I'm shooting for 4 of these things, right? Which should be about 2 cups. That's going to make a lot of noodles. 1. I got 1 and a little bit more, right? Come on back here and make up the difference. So I'm shooting for 2 and some change, right? Here's 1. Call that 2. And call that enough. I'll put 2 of these units in. Just like that, right? I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil, and what this olive oil does, more than anything else, you don't want to use a lot of it, is it keeps dough from sticking on your hands a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of water in there, and then we'll start making them. So what you want to do is stir that up and mix it all up. I've got it about this far. I just added a little bit of water by kind of instinct, I guess. And it gets kind of doughy. And the trick to it is not to put a lot of water in to begin with. You can always add more, like I say. Wash your hands, and then you can get your hands in. Also do that here. Of course, I've washed this counter off too, and the easiest way to mix your dough is just kind of like you're kneading it, rather than kind of just sit there and keep spooning it around. You see I got it right here. Just kind of keep working it. So I made a dough ball here. You're kind of better off letting this cool off a little bit for half an hour or so. Wrap it in plastic wrap, like cling wrap, and put it in the refrigerator, and we'll come back to that in a moment. In the meantime, what you need to start thinking about is how you want this to taste, and that's going to be personal to you. And you'll want to use some spices. I'm going to use a little bit of rosemary in there. I've got a little bowl here. And just give yourself a kind of a palm full of that stuff, right? I'm going to do the same thing with thyme. Also, you can use fresh garlic if you want to. I'm going to use a little bit of garlic powder in there. Same trick with onion powder. Sometimes you might like some oregano in there, or you guys generally probably know what spices you like. So that goes in there, and that's going to come to a boil. And now it's time to address the red deals. Now remember, I'm shooting for 10 of these units, right? That's actually quite a bit. I started out with I think about 2 pounds of chicken, and as it turns out, once you get this all to this point, this is only 4 of these cups, right? 4 of them. So you'd say, well, God, why don't you just get some more chicken? You don't really have to. So what am I going to do about the remaining things? I need 5 or 6 of these units, right? Well, generally what I'll do is I'll put in beans, in particular garbanzo beans, and obviously I don't have any of those today, so I'm going to use some lima beans. That's going to be another one of them. All right. I'm out of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, I got some ham that I make sandwiches out of. 4 or 5 slices of ham. This is pretty good Whole Foods ham. And it's pretty lean to begin with. And what you come to find out too is if you like ham, this actually adds a whole lot of flavor to this soup. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it up really, chop it up really fine, not in chunks. It's actually going to be more of a minced up is the way to think about it. And then that'll really spread the flavor around, all right? So So I'm going to finish up that and then set aside my stuff for my dogs. They're laying right here, ready to help me, and get that in the pot, and then we'll come on back with the noodles. When I finish up with that ham and the beans and the turkey, or not turkey, but chicken, I had I think eight containers total. So I had 3 of the ham, 4 of the chicken, and 1 of the beans. And I got looking at it too, that those 2 eggs count for 1 red inside of here. So you're probably okay with that. Guess I haven't ever done this. It's actually kind of fun. Just mash it out, right? Use your proper rolling pin technique and just make that as flat as you want it. You can go for big thick noodles, or you can go for really thin noodles. So this will take a couple of minutes because I always just kind of smear it around. 3 minutes later, I get this all smeared out over this board. I got one of these units. These are actually sold as a spice chopper, if you will, to cut up parsley and what have you. But they actually work very well in making noodles. Now hopefully you can see that. All those little noodles are beginning. Those are going to be real long noodles, so I'm going to take my knife and cut them. About 2 inches. And that's my soup's boiling like crazy back here, and I want it to, right? Because I'm going to add these noodles in. So just take a row of these things at a time, see? And dump them in the soup. Mix those noodles. You want to help me? My noodle eater's in here too. Actually, if you want to come here and stir this, she's going to stir this to what you're trying to do is keep all these noodles will separate. You could take them and dry them out if you wanted to. That would work. So after I get all these in here and she gets done stirring them up, I'll throw that other quart of broth in, and we'll be all set. We'll kind of kick back and recap what we did, and think about eating this stuff. Maybe we'll just eat it right now. So remember, our objective right here was to make this whole concoction in the proportions that you're looking for, right? Kind of a 1 to 1 to 1. And if you look at the whole thing, believe it or not, I look at some of these, I think it's a 22 to 2,500 calorie a day type thing that you've got written down here. You can eat that entire thing in 1 day. That's about how many calories that has in it. So, and I don't suggest that because you're going to want to eat something else. The question is, how much is a serving of this? Where would 1 red, 1 green, 1 yellow be? And it's a bowl about this big. This is about 2 cups, right? So about 2 cups of this stuff equals 1 red, 1 green, 1 yellow, right? We've got about an hour vested in this right now. You can cut that even shorter. Like I say, if you buy your vegetables already diced up, right? And also, instead, if you're eating chicken, you can buy a rotisserie chicken at the store on the way home. But what we plan on here is probably, easily about 3 nights out of this between the 2 of us, right? So hopefully that helps you out. Hopefully I'll buy you 2-3 nights into next week if you want to try this. Like I say, I've been eating this way since I was in college. So, which was last year? No, for about 30 years now. And so it hasn't killed me yet. Hopefully there's something in there that you'll benefit from.